Have you ever wondered how empires are truly built? Is it with armies, with swords, and with cannons? Or is it with something far more powerful? Something invisible, yet capable of toppling thrones and forging new worlds? Today, we're journeying back to the 1700s, to an India that was not just a land of maharajas and magnificent palaces, but the undisputed financial superpower of the globe. Forget what you think you know about the British Empire. The story of its rise isn't just about redcoats and warships. It's a story of money, betrayal, and a secret network of bankers who held the fate of nations in their hands. At the heart of this web of power was one family, so influential, so wealthy, their name literally meant banker of the world, the Jagat Seths. This is the forgotten history of how Indian financiers bankrolled empires, orchestrated coups, and, in a tragic twist of fate, unknowingly handed their own country's future to a foreign trading company. We're about to uncover how the real conquerors of India weren't generals, but accountants. Before the British East India Company became a household name, the Mughal Empire was the richest on earth, and its lifeblood flowed from the treasuries of Bengal. This region was the economic engine of the world, a hub of trade and production that made European nations look impoverished in comparison. And who controlled this vast river of wealth? Not the emperor in Delhi, not entirely. The real power lay with the Jagat Seths. Imagine a single-family firm acting as the central bank for an entire empire. They minted coins, collected taxes, managed trade deficits, and provided loans so massive they could fund entire armies. Their credit notes were honored from Kabul to the ports of Southeast Asia. The Mughal emperor himself was on their client list. If you wanted to rule, you needed their blessing. If you crossed them, you wouldn't last long. Their influence was absolute. But power attracts competition. By the mid-18th century, a new player had arrived in Bengal, the British East India Company. Initially, they were just traders, bowing to the local rulers and playing by the rules set by the Jagat Seths. But men like Robert Clive were ambitious. They saw the immense wealth of Bengal not just as something to trade with, but as something to take. And they knew they couldn't do it with force alone. They needed an inside man. This brings us to the turning point in world history, the Battle of Plassey in 1757. The history books often frame this as a heroic British victory against overwhelming odds. The truth is far more complex and far more scandalous. It wasn't a battle. It was a transaction, a corporate takeover orchestrated behind closed doors. The ruling Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, was young, impulsive, and had made powerful enemies, including the Jagat Seths. The bankers felt their business interests and political influence were threatened by the new Nawab. Seeing an opportunity, Robert Clive approached them. He didn't offer a military alliance. He proposed a business deal. The plan was simple, yet devastating. The Jagat Seths, along with other disgruntled commanders in the Nawab's army, would agree to betray their ruler. In exchange for their neutrality on the battlefield, the British would install a new puppet Nawab who would grant them immense financial and territorial concessions. The Jagat Seths would secure their financial dominance under a more predictable regime. It was the most profitable coup in history. When the day of the battle came, the Nawab's massive army barely fought. Key commanders, paid off by the deal brokered by the Jagat Seths and Clive, simply stood down or retreated. The battle was over in hours. Siraj-ud-Dowlah was captured and executed, and the British East India Company effectively became the new masters of Bengal. This was the moment everything changed. The deal that sealed the fate of the Nawab also opened the floodgates for what historians call the Great Drain of Wealth. With their puppet ruler in place, the British didn't just trade with Bengal anymore, they plundered it. The company systematically dismantled the local economy, seized the treasury, and began transferring Bengal's vast riches directly to Britain. What was the scale of this transfer? Some economists estimate that over the next Britain extracted the modern equivalent of $45 trillion from India. Let that number sink in. 45 trillion. Just profit. It was the capital that fueled Britain's industrial revolution. The factories of Manchester, the shipyards of Liverpool, the grand architecture of London, much of it was built on the foundations of Indian wealth. While Britain was rising, India, once the world's leading economy, began its long decline into poverty. And what became of the Jagat Seths, the kingmakers who thought they had secured their future? Their story is a cautionary tale. They had underestimated the insatiable ambition of the East India Company. Once the British had direct control over the revenue of Bengal, they no longer needed their Indian bankers. The new masters of India established their own treasury, their own banks, and systematically cut the Jagat Seths out of the system they had once controlled. Within a generation, the family that had been the bankers of the world faded into obscurity. They had played a dangerous game, betting that they could control a foreign power. In the end, the very system of finance they had perfected was used against them, and they lost everything. They handed the keys of the kingdom to the company, only to find themselves locked out forever. The story of the Jagat Seths and the fall of Bengal is a powerful lesson in economic history. It shows us that true power doesn't always come from the barrel of a gun. It comes from controlling the flow of money. It reveals how financial systems can be weaponized, how empires can be bought and sold, and how the pursuit of profit can reshape the destiny of the entire world. Every empire, from the Romans to the Mughals, eventually collapses when it loses control of its finances. The British Empire was no different, but its beginning was unique. It wasn't born from a royal decree or a grand military campaign. It was born from a secret deal in a banker's mansion in Bengal. A deal that traded a kingdom for cash and changed the course of history. The modern world, with its global financial systems and corporate power, was forged in the fire of this betrayal. Money, not muskets, was the true conqueror. The Jagat Seths weren't warriors. They didn't march with armies or conquer cities. But with a single signature, they could make, or break, an empire. They believed they were securing Bengal's future. But instead, they opened the door to a new kind of conquest, one built on contracts, not cannons. The British didn't take India overnight. They bought it, one loan, one alliance, one betrayal at a time. And when the bankers of Bengal lost control of their own money, they lost control of their destiny. It's a story as old as history itself. Whoever controls the money controls the empire. So here's the question. In our world today, where trillion-dollar debts and global finance rule everything, who really holds the power now? Drop your thoughts below, because history's greatest lesson might just be repeating itself. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden history of finance and empire. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to HistoroMystic for more stories that uncover the secrets of our past. Let us know in the comments what you think. Was the Battle of Plassey the greatest corporate heist in history? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious.